Jace Riven's boots hit the sapphire sands of Zephyria with a soft crunch. Twin amethyst moons hung in the shimmering twilight sky, bathing the alien landscape in an ethereal glow. Adjusting the straps of his weathered pack, Jace surveyed the exotic vista before him with curious emerald eyes. At last, after drifting between the stars for months on end, the restless human adventurer had arrived at his latest destination. Few outsiders ever set foot on remote Zephyria, but whispered tales of the planet's ancient mysteries and untold wonders had proven an irresistible lure to Jace. Armed with little more than a cryptic astromap, a temperamental translator implant, and his characteristic boldness, he ventured into the unknown. Vivid cerulean-leaf trees lined the winding path leading from the deserted landing pad into Zephyria's capital city. Opalescent skyscrapers grew taller as Jace approached, their sinuous forms twisting elegantly into the heavens. Holographic signs in the Zephyrian script flickered above arched doorways, beckoning visitors into shops filled with exotics goods from across the galaxy. As he reached the bustling central marketplace, hundreds of alien eyes turned to examine the newcomer. Bipedal Zephyrians in flowing opalescent robes brushed past him, their pale blue skin and onyx eyes marking them as native to this world. Insectoid Zaxians chirped and clicked as they haggled over shimmering tech components. A hulking reptilian Gorlak sneered at Jace while polishing an ominous obsidian blade. Undaunted by the extra attention, Jace sauntered up to a floating menu board presided over by a wizened Yathian with wrinkled orange skin. Strange runes changed shape before his eyes, incomprehensible until his implant caught up and translated the offerings. Jace casually ordered a glass of Emberstorm ale and slid onto a stool to people watch. Suddenly, a commotion erupted near the market center. Jace craned his neck to spot a knot of Zephyrians gathered around a shining monument. Atop a plinth of pure Cyrillium metal protruded an ornate sword hilt, its blade buried deep within the otherwise impenetrable surface. "Another fool seduced by the celestial saber legend," muttered the Yathian barkeep, catching Jace's inquisitive look. "Happens every few moons. Some glory seeker thinks they're the chosen one. P.F. Fa." Jace's curiosity was piqued. He slid a few credit chits across the bar. "Tell me more, friend. I'm new in town and always interested in local myths." The Yathian tucked away the gratuity with a smirk. "For 1,000 orbits, warriors from 100 worlds have come to test themselves against the saber. All have failed to even make it twitch. Only the blade's destined partner is supposed to be able to claim it and unlock cosmic secrets. But if you ask me, the real secret is that there's no secret at all, just a fool's errand." Jace couldn't suppress his grin. Impossible odds and cosmic secrets. Now that sounded like his kind of adventure. Thanking the barkeep, Jace stood up just as a striking female Zephyrian approached his table. Her ebony hair was woven intricately with silver filaments, and her eyes glittered like midnight stars. Something about her flustered manner told Jace she wasn't a regular at this boisterous establishment. "1,000 pardons for the intrusion, outsider," she said, bowing her head. "I am Lyra, apprentice to the celestial historian. I couldn't help but overhear your interest in the saber. While I admire your spirit, I must strongly caution you against pursuing that treacherous path." "Well, Lyra, your concern for my well-being is touching," Jace replied warmly. "But I didn't rocket halfway across the galaxy to play it safe. Jace Riven, adventurer at your service. Now, why don't you tell me the real story behind that bewitched blade?" Lyra sighed, then smiled ruefully at the audacious human. There was something about his fearless zeal that resonated with a carefully guarded spark within her own soul. "Very well, Jace Riven, I will share what I know. But I assure you, by the time I'm done, you'll agree only a great fool would dare to challenge the celestial saber." Lyra led Jace through the winding streets of the capital, recounting the ancient legend as they walked. The celestial saber, she explained, was said to be starforged eons ago by the goddess Astria herself. Imbued with unfathomable power, it could only be wielded by a true chosen one, pure of heart and strong in spirit. For a millennium, countless contenders from across the cosmos had tried and failed to claim the blade as their own. Thousands stronger and wiser than any human have attempted to draw the saber, Lyra warned as they ascended the moonlit steps of the astral temple. What makes you think you could succeed where so many have been found unworthy? Jace flashed a lopsided grin. Honestly, not a thing, but I've never been one to back down from a challenge, especially when the odds are stacked against me. Call it human stubbornness. Lyra shook her head, torn between exasperation and amusement at the outsider's sheer audacity. Part of her feared he would become yet another failed aspirant, his hopes dashed against the unyielding stone. Yet she couldn't help but wonder if perhaps, just maybe, there was something different about this brash young man. As they entered the temple's grand hall, a hush fell over the gathered crowd of Zephyrians, Zaxians, and other pilgrims. All eyes turned to stare at the human striding boldly to the sacred dais where the celestial saber stood embedded. Murmurs of shock and disapproval rippled through the assembled onlookers. Sacrilege, hissed a wizened Zephyrian priest. No primitive outsider could possibly be the chosen one. But Jace paid the naysayers no heed. His focus was solely on the shimmering hilt before him, its silvery lines seeming to pulse with ancient power. Reverently, he placed his hands upon the intricate metalwork, feeling an instant jolt like an electrical current surging through his body. The blade began to vibrate. Arcs of blinding white light danced across the gleaming metal and stone. A subsonic rumble shook the temple's very foundations. Lyra watched in disbelief as, with a sound like a thunderclap, the celestial saber broke free from its ageless prison at last. It rose into the air, thrumming with cosmic energy, before gravity reclaimed it and the hilt smacked firmly into Jace's waiting palm. Stunned silence reigned for a single heartbeat. Then, as the magnitude of what they'd just witnessed sank in, chaos erupted. "Impossible," bellowed the head priest. "This cannot be." Some sank to their knees in spontaneous prayer. Others shouted accusations of trickery, deceit, abomination. A burly Gorlax mercenary drew his disruptor pistol and leveled it at Jace with a snarl. Jace held up his empty hand in a placating gesture, while the other gripped the saber in a combat-ready stance. "Easy there, friend. No need for anyone to get hurt. Pretty sure slaying the Chosen One would be an even bigger sin, right?" As temple guards closed in and angry shouts intensified, Lyra grabbed Jace's arm urgently. "We must go now," she urged, "before this turns even uglier." Spotting a servant's exit behind a tapestried alcove, Lyra dragged the still-shocked Jace toward it. Together, the unlikely duo fled into the Zephyrian night, the celestial saber blazing like a newborn star in the human's hand. An ancient prophecy had been set in motion, and neither of their lives would ever be the same. In a shadowed alleyway far from the astral temple, Jace and Lyra paused to catch their breath. The celestial saber's glow had dimmed to a faint sheen, as if sated by its long-awaited awakening. Lyra's dark eyes were wide with a mix of awe and apprehension as she beheld the legendary blade in the human's grasp. Her world had been upended in a single night, all her certainties shattered like glass. I don't understand," she murmured. "How could an outsider draw the saber when the greatest champions of Zephyria could not? It defies everything I've ever been taught." Jace met her gaze steadily, his own expression uncharacteristically solemn. "Wish I had an answer for you, Lyra. All I know is that when I touched that hilt it felt, right somehow, like it had been waiting for me." He shook his head. "But I'm no savior or chosen one. I'm just a guy who's in way over his head and could really use a friend right now." Lyra felt a sudden pang of sympathy for the bewildered human. Loath as she was to admit it, she too was adrift in uncharted waters. As a historian's apprentice, her life had been one of dusty tomes and ancient tales, not rebel adventures with galaxy-shaking consequences. She took a deep breath, squaring her shoulders resolutely. You risked your life to help me escape the temple. That makes us allies, if not friends. And if the celestial saber truly chose you, then I choose to stand by your side, come what may. Jace smiled gratefully, clapping a hand on the young Zephyrian's shoulder. I appreciate that, Lyra. I have a feeling we're going to need all the help we can get. Over the next several days, word of the human chosen one spread like wildfire across Zephyria. Some hailed Jace as a long-awaited hero, the outsider of prophecy come to restore the planet's lost glory. Others reviled him as a blasphemous pretender, an affront to the gods. Lyra used her scholarly connections to arrange clandestine meetings between Jace and potential sympathizers. A grizzled old warrior pledged his plasma axe to their cause. The matriarch of a powerful merchant clan offered secret funding. But for every new ally they gained, another enemy rose against them. Bounty hunters sought to claim the price on the human's head. Zealots decried him as a false prophet. And most dangerous of all, the corrupt Zephyrian High Council saw Jace's arrival as a dire threat to their authoritarian rule. As tensions rose to a fever pitch, Jace and Lyra spent long hours poring over crumbling manuscripts and forbidden data vaults, seeking any scrap of knowledge that might help them unravel the celestial saber's true purpose. With each stolen moment together, the unlikely bond between human and Zephyrian grew stronger, blossoming from grudging respect to implicit trust to the first stirrings of something infinitely more precious and infinitely more perilous. For even as the specter of civil war loomed over Zephyria, Jace and Lyra fought another battle within their own hearts, a love that both knew could spell their doom if discovered. Yet with the fate of worlds hanging in the balance, they had little choice but to cling to each other as the storm gathered, come what may. Deep within the catacombs beneath the astral temple, Jace and Lyra huddled over an ancient data codex, urgently scanning its fractal lines of glowing text. What they discovered within its crystalline depths would change everything. Jace, look at this, Lyra breathed, her fingers tracing a pulsing series of runes. The celestial saber, it was never meant for a single wielder at all. Its true purpose is to unite two worthy souls in perfect harmony, bonding their strength, their will, their very essence. Jace's eyes widened as realization dawned. And you and I, we're those souls. That's why the saber chose me, because it somehow sensed the connection between us even before we realized it ourselves. Lyra nodded slowly, marveling at the profound implications. A weapon forged to bring two hearts together, to create a love that could reshape the cosmos itself. But their enemies would never allow such a union to flourish. The High Council, ever fearful of any challenge to their power, had branded Jace and Lyra as heretics and traitors. Even now, their spies closed in, ready to crush the burgeoning rebellion at any cost. Jace gripped the saber's hilt with renewed resolve. Then we'll just have to make sure those bastards never get their hands on this knowledge. We keep fighting, no matter what, for Zephyria, for the future, and for us. He took Lyra's hand in his, the simple touch electric with unspoken promise. Whatever trials lay ahead, they would face them together, two hearts, one destiny. Part 5, Battle for Zephyria's Fate. The eve of battle found Jace and Lyra atop the Starfall Spire, the highest point in Zephyria's capital. Below them, rebel forces clashed with the Council's ruthless enforcers in a cacophony of plasma fire and sonic blasts. The very fate of the planet hung in the balance. Lyra, resplendent in shining Zephyrian battle armor, lifted her hands to the heavens. Ancient words of power spilled from her lips as she wove a web of eldritch energy around them both. Jace stood at her side, the celestial saber blazing with supernal light, an indomitable bulwark against the darkness. You know, when I came to Zephyria, I thought I was chasing just another adventure, Jace murmured, his gaze locked on Lyra's. I never dreamed I'd find something infinitely more precious, you. Lyra reached up to caress his face, heedless of the chaos raging below. Nor did I ever imagine I would fall in love with an impossible, infuriating, utterly irresistible human. But the celestial saber knew even then. It saw the shape of our destiny, the pattern of our souls. As Jace leaned down to capture her lips in a searing kiss, the saber flared with blinding radiance. Its form shifted, elongated, until Jace and Lyra each gripped one end of a shimmering staff, their free hands interlaced between them. And with that union, that perfect melding of human daring and Zephyrian wisdom, the tide of battle turned at last. The Council's forces fell back in disarray before the onslaught of the Celestial Staff's cosmic might. Cheers of triumph rose from the rebel ranks as the corrupt rulers were dragged from their palaces in chains. A new day dawned over Zephyria, a day of freedom, of hope, of infinite possibility. And at the heart of it all stood Jace and Lyra, the unlikeliest of lovers, the most remarkable of heroes. The Starforged had been reborn in mortal flesh, a living emblem of the power of unity, of the courage to forge an unbreakable bond across the boundaries of worlds. And together, they would forge a future brighter than the stars themselves.
The end.